All right, so get ready because today we are diving deep into Nietzsche.
Ooh, Nietzsche.
Yeah, we've got some excerpts from Thus Spoke Zarathustra to unpack for you today.
Oh, nice.
And to help us out, we've got some really interesting editor notes too that shed new light on his work. So
Yeah.
are you ready to tackle some of these notoriously challenging concepts?
So, yeah.
Like the death of God, the will to power, the Ubermensch.
Big stuff.
Let's see what they might mean for us, even in 2025,
Right.
So,
Well, what's fascinating is how people often try to box Nietzsche in as this grim,
Yeah.
pessimistic figure.
right.
But when you actually dig into Thus Spoke Zarathustra, especially with these editor notes,
Right.
you see a surprising playfulness, even humor,
I love that.
woven through his ideas.
Yeah, that's what I love about these deep dives,
Yeah.
busting those myths.
Right.
Okay, so Zarathustra himself, he's this prophet-like character wandering around,
Yeah.
dropping these, wisdom bombs.
Yeah.
But something in the editor's notes really struck me.
Okay.
Zarathustra isn't looking for disciples who just parrot his every word.
He's not looking for followers.
No, not really. It's like,
Ah, interesting.
yeah, there's this, almost like he's a prophet
Okay.
who wants you to argue with him.
Ah, okay.
And there's this great quote where Zarathustra actually tells his followers,
Right?
"Now I bid you lose me and find yourselves, and only when you have all denied me will I come back to you."
Well,
Talk about turning the whole prophet thing on its head, you know?
yeah, seriously.
It makes you think about how we approach, any source of authority, even
Right.
someone as radical as Nietzsche.
Absolutely.
It's like he's demanding that
Yeah.
we engage actively with his ideas,
Right.
not just passively accepting them.
Right. Not just taking his word for it, but really grappling with it yourself.
All right, so let's grapple.
Let's do it.
One of Nietzsche's most infamous pronouncements, the death of God. Now, obviously, he wasn't talking about some,
Yeah.
literal deity kicking the bucket.
Right.
So, what was he getting at?
Well, he was really pointing to the crumbling foundation of traditional morality and values in the modern world.
Okay.
It's like that quote, "God is dead, of his pity for man has God died."
Right.
And Nietzsche saw this pity as a kind of weakness,
Yeah.
preventing humanity from reaching its full potential.
It's a really powerful image, though, isn't it?
Oh, for sure.
It's like those old anchors of meaning and purpose are just gone.
Right.
So the question for us becomes, what do we do with that void?
Yeah.
Are we just a little drift in a sea of nihilism?
Yeah.
Or does it open up all these new possibilities for self-creation?
I mean, that's the core tension that Nietzsche throws at us, right?
Yeah.
He's not offering easy answers, but he's forcing us to confront this question
Yeah.
of what values we'll choose in a world
Right.
where the old ones no longer hold sway.
And that choice, that active creation, that's where the will to power comes in, right?
I think so, yeah.
I've always found this concept so tricky.
Oh, yeah, me too.
It's easy to misinterpret it as just
Totally.
wanting to dominate other people.
Wanting to be powerful.
Right. Exactly.
But it's so much more nuanced than that.
Okay.
Nietzsche saw this will to power as this fundamental driving force behind all living things.
Okay.
It's the urge to grow, to overcome, to express yourself,
Right.
to reach your full potential.
So it's not just this.
He even saw, the pursuit of truth as a manifestation of the will to power.
Wow. So it's less about
Yeah,
brute force and more about this internal striving, this constant self-overcoming.
that's a great way to put it, yeah.
I'm starting to see how that connects to his idea of joy
Uh-huh.
as a kind of expression of power.
Absolutely, yeah, for Nietzsche.
Yeah.
Genuine joy isn't just about having fun, it's about that feeling of accomplishment
Yeah.
that comes from overcoming challenges, from pushing yourself beyond your limits and emerging stronger.
It makes me think of that, athlete crossing the finish line
Oh, yeah.
after an incredibly grueling race,
Right.
There's exhaustion, for sure, but there's also this immense sense of satisfaction,
Yes.
of triumph. And I feel like that's the kind of joy Nietzsche was talking about.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the joy of a sculptor
Right.
chiseling away at a block of marble,
Yeah.
bringing a vision to life through sheer effort and willpower.
Right. Or the musician composing a symphony.
Yes, wrestling with notes and harmonies until they achieve that perfect expression.
Right. So it's about pushing yourself creatively, physically, intellectually.
Yeah.
And feeling that surge of power, that sense of accomplishment when you overcome those obstacles in your path.
And that's what separates, the individual who embraces this will to power from what Nietzsche calls the last man.
Oh,
Someone who just wants comfort and security, who
No.
avoids struggle and challenge. And for Nietzsche,
Yeah.
that kind of complacency leads to stagnation, like a spiritual death.
so how do we even know if we're on the right track?
Yeah.
Like if our choices are actually fueling this will to power, this like authentic self-creation,
Right.
rather than just, following the herd.
Well, Nietzsche offers a fascinating, if unsettling, litmus test.
Yeah.
The idea of eternal recurrence.
Okay.
So what if you had to live your life
Yeah.
over and over again exactly as you've lived it,
Wow.
with all its joys and sorrows? Would you embrace that prospect or recoil in horror?
That's a pretty heavy thought.
Yeah, it makes you reevaluate everything, right?
Yeah, seriously.
And, the editor notes pointed out something crucial,
Yeah.
that eternal recurrence really makes the concept of self less important.
Less important.
Yeah, it's less about you specifically,
Okay.
and more about whether the life you're living is
Yeah.
one you choose to repeat eternally.
That's not about
Right.
achieving some kind of perfect life,
Mm.
but more about living in a way that you wouldn't regret, even if you had to, like do it all over again
Yeah,
and again and again.
exactly. It's a powerful way to
Yeah.
kind of like cut through the noise
Right.
and distractions of daily life
Yeah.
and ask yourself, is this how I want to spend my, eternity?
Now that's a question that'll keep you up at night.
Right.
Right. I'm starting to see how this all ties together, but
Yeah.
didn't Nietzsche also have some like pretty intense things to say about suffering?
He did.
It seems almost like contradictory to this idea of joy and self-overcoming.
It does, and it's where his philosophy gets really challenging,
Right.
but also potentially incredibly rewarding. He wasn't glorifying suffering,
Right.
but he recognized it as like an inevitable part of existence.
Right.
In fact, he saw it as like the crucible in which we forge our strength,
Oh, okay.
our resilience.
There's that line in Zarathustra, suffering it was, an impotence that created all afterworlds.
Yes.
He's not saying suffering is good, exactly, but that it's like this catalyst for growth, for reaching beyond our limitation.
He saw suffering as a fundamental part of the human experience,
Yeah.
something we can't escape, but the key is how we respond to it.
Right.
Do we let it crush us, or do we use it as fuel for our will to power, for our own self-transformation?
It's like that saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yes, exactly.
Nietzsche seems to be taking that a step further,
He is.
saying we shouldn't just like endure suffering, but somehow like embrace it, find meaning in it.
Exactly. And this leads us to another crucial Nietzschean concept.
Okay.
Amor fati,
Amor fati.
the love of fate. I mean, it's a radical idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
To not just accept what life throws at us,
Right.
but to actively love it.
Right.
Even the painful parts.
It's definitely a challenge, especially in our culture,
Yeah.
where we're always trying to like avoid discomfort and
Yeah.
maximize pleasure.
Totally.
But I'm sensing that Nietzsche saw something deeper in that struggle.
Oh, absolutely. For him, amor fati wasn't about passive resignation.
Right.
It was a powerful affirmation of the will to power.
Okay.
A way of saying yes to the entirety of existence with all its ups and downs.
This is reminding me of that editor note about how Nietzsche himself used humor and playfulness.
Yeah.
Especially in Thus Spoke Zarathustra.
Right.
It's like he's showing us
Yeah.
that even in the face of like the heaviest concepts,
Yeah.
there's still room for like lightness, even laughter.
Yeah. It's a crucial point.
Yeah.
So many people miss that side of Nietzsche.
Right.
He even talks about laughter as like a weapon against
Right,
what
yeah.
he called the spirit of gravity.
Okay.
All those things that like weigh us down, make us take ourselves too seriously.
There's that great line, not by wrath, but by laughter do we slay. Come, let us slay the spirit of gravity.
Love that word.
It's like he's saying,
Yeah.
don't let the weight of the world or even the weight of your own philosophy crush your spirit.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And this ties directly into his ideas about the body and the importance of lived experience.
Right.
He wasn't just some like disembodied mind floating in the ether.
Right.
He really saw the body as like a source of wisdom, instinct of our connection to the world. Yeah, there's that quote, the most honest existence. it speaks of the body.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying,
Yeah.
we can't ignore our physicality, our drives, our passions.
Yeah.
They're all part of who we are.
He saw the mind and body
Right.
as inextricably linked.
Right.
To deny the body is to deny a fundamental part of our being.
Okay.
And this kind of leads us to another often misunderstood concept,
Yeah.
Nietzsche's views on pity.
Okay. Yeah, he's definitely got some strong opinions there.
He does.
He, warns against pity.
Yeah.
Even calls it a heavy cloud.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he acknowledges the pain of loneliness, of feeling isolated from others.
Right.
So how do we reconcile those seemingly contradictory views?
Well, it's all about nuance. I mean, he wasn't against compassion altogether.
Okay.
What he warned against was a kind of pity that diminishes both the giver and the receiver.
Right.
He saw it as a weakness that prevents us from reaching our full potential.
It's like that kind of pity that keeps people dependent, that reinforces a sense of helplessness.
Yeah.
It's not true compassion.
It's not. You're right. It's not. True compassion for Nietzsche involves recognizing the other person's strength and potential, their capacity to overcome.
Yeah.
It's about empowering them, not keeping them small.
So it's about tough love in a way.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Pushing each other to grow.
Yeah.
Even when it's uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is where his ideas about friendship become really interesting.
Yeah.
He saw true friendship as something rare and precious.
Yeah.
A relationship based on mutual respect and a shared desire for self-overcoming.
It's not about always agreeing or validating each other.
No.
It's about challenging each other to become better versions of ourselves.
I like that.
Kind of like what we're doing right now, hopefully.
I hope so.
Yeah. But if Nietzsche was so wary of the herd mentality, how did he see the role of the individual in society?
That's the central tension, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he was deeply critical of what he called the herd.
Oh.
Those who just blindly conform to societal norms without questioning or challenging them.
Yeah.
He saw that as a kind of spiritual death, a suppression of the will to power.
He wrote, "The state, I call it, where all are poison drinkers, the good and the bad. The state, where all lose themselves, the good and the bad. The state, where the slow suicide of all is called life."
Yeah, he didn't mince words.
No, he did not.
He saw conformity as stifling creativity and individuality.
Okay.
Leading to mediocrity and a loss of that vital spark that makes us human. But, and this is crucial, he wasn't advocating for anarchy or isolation either.
So how do we balance that need for individuality with the reality of living in a society?
Yeah.
It's we can't all just become hermits and live in caves.
Right, exactly. And this is where I think Nietzsche's concept of the Ubermensch or overman becomes so relevant.
Okay.
He saw the Ubermensch as the one who transcended the limitations of the herd.
Okay.
Who created their own values and lived by them, even in the face of, societal pressures.
But Nietzsche was also very clear that the Ubermensch isn't some kind of superhuman being with superpowers.
Yep.
It's a potential within all of us.
Right.
This capacity to evolve beyond our current limitations.
It's not about dominating others. It's about mastering oneself.
Right.
About becoming the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
Even if that means going against the grain.
It makes you think about all the ways we conform, often unconsciously, to societal expectations,
Absolutely.
What would it look like to truly embrace that Nietzschean spirit of self-creation?
Yeah.
Of becoming who we're meant to be, even if it, challenges the status quo?
That's the question Nietzsche throws at us.
Yeah.
And it's a question that's just as relevant today as it was back then.
Right.
And I think it's even more pressing in a world saturated with technology and social media.
Oh, absolutely.
Where the pressures to conform, to fit in, are perhaps even stronger.
It makes me think about how we consume information. How we form our opinions, how we define success.
Right.
Are we truly thinking for ourselves?
Yeah.
Or are we just absorbing the values and beliefs of, the herd, even if that herd is online?
It's a crucial question to ask ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think Nietzsche would argue that true self-creation requires a willingness to step outside of those echo chambers, to challenge our own assumptions, and to confront uncomfortable truths.
And maybe, just maybe, to find a way to, laugh at the absurdity of it all along the way.
That's the spirit. Remember, Nietzsche saw humor as a sign of strength.
Yeah.
A way of acknowledging the weight of existence without being crushed by it.
Right.
It's a reminder to not take ourselves or our beliefs too seriously.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I'm left with this feeling of, well, excited unease. Nietzsche definitely throws down some serious challenges.
He does.
But he also offers this vision of radical freedom and self-creation.
Right.
That's like pretty inspiring.
Yeah.
Even if it's a bit daunting.
Totally.
It's like he's handing us a chisel and saying, okay, here's the marble, now go sculpt your own damn masterpiece.
I love that.
But where do we even start?
Well, that's the beauty of it. There's no like one-size-fits-all answer.
Yeah.
But I think Nietzsche would say the first step is to cultivate what he called a philosophical hammer.
Okay, a philosophical hammer.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. What's a philosophical hammer?
Okay, well, first of all, no actual smashing.
Okay.
It's about developing a critical mindset,
Okay.
a willingness to like question everything,
Right.
including our own cherished beliefs and assumptions.
So it's about like taking nothing for granted, constantly testing and refining our understanding of ourselves and the world.
Exactly. And, you know, once we've cleared away the rubble,
Right.
then we can start building something new.
Okay.
Something that reflects our own unique will to power,
Right.
our own vision of a meaningful life.
This is making me think about the role of the poet in Nietzsche's philosophy.
Yeah.
He seemed to see the poet as more than just, you know,
Right.
a writer of verses.
Oh, absolutely. For Nietzsche, the poet was a creator of values,
Okay.
a visionary who could reimagine the world and inspire others to embrace new possibilities.
There's that line in Zarathustra, to redeem what is past and to transform every it was into thus would I have it.
I love that one.
It's like the poet takes the raw material of experience, even the painful parts, and transforms it into something beautiful, something meaningful.
And that, you know, that act of creative transformation is like an expression of the will to power at its highest level.
Okay.
It's about taking control of our own narrative, shaping our own destiny, and leaving our mark on the world.
So it's not just about writing poetry. It's about like approaching life with that same sense of creativity, that willingness to reimagine and reinvent ourselves.
Precisely. It's about becoming the poets of our own lives.
Okay.
Crafting a narrative that reflects our deepest values and aspirations.
Right.
And maybe, just maybe, inspiring others to do the same.
You know, thinking back to where we started about Nietzsche's reputation as this, like, gloomy, pessimistic philosopher.
Right.
It's so striking how much his philosophy is actually about, like, embracing life.
Right.
About finding joy and meaning, even in the midst of struggle.
I mean, that's the paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
He grapples with some of the heaviest, most challenging aspects of the human experience.
Right.
The death of God, the problem of suffering, the meaninglessness of existence. But he always comes back to this affirmation of life, this call to embrace the will to power and create something beautiful out of the chaos.
It's like he's saying, yes, the universe is indifferent, life is absurd, but that doesn't mean we can't find moments of joy, of triumph, of creative expression.
Exactly. And that's ultimately what makes his philosophy so enduring and relevant. Even in 2025, we're still grappling with those same fundamental questions about meaning, purpose, and the nature of existence.
And Nietzsche, more than perhaps any other philosopher, really gives us the tools to confront those questions head on without flinching and to forge our own path forward.
He doesn't give us easy answers, but he empowers us to ask the right questions. The questions that can lead us to a more authentic, more fulfilling, more meaningful life.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Nietzsche, I think the challenge for us is to take those questions, those philosophical hammers, out into the world and start, you know, smashing some idols, questioning some assumptions, maybe even creating some poetry along the way.
And to remember that even if our lives aren't eternally recurring, they are uniquely ours to shape. So let's make them count.